Hi everyone, Carol here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to work the Fair Isle technique, also known as stranded knitting. It involves using 2 or more colours across a row, and you do a few stitches in one colour followed by a few stitches in the other colour, and you carry the colour that you're not using across the back of the work. You strand it, in other words, which is why it's called stranded knitting. Now what I want to show you now is the back of the work, because a common problem that people have with working Fair Isle is that it doesn't look nice and flat like that. It actually puckers up, and that is because the floats are either being pulled too tight usually, or if it's a little bit loose then they may have not been pulled tight enough. So I want to show you the back, because the back is really as important at the front, and I know that's a bit of a cliche, but it really is true in this case, and I'm going to show you why that is. In here, this is the very first row that you can see here. You can see the blue floats across the back, and the other colour being used in this row is this sort of beigey colour here. Okay. But the floats that are going across are completely in a straight line. They never cross, they never vary, they never go up or down. They're in a straight line. And the blue floats are all above the beige floats. And that's the way it should be. They should never cross. They should always lie flat like that without crossing. And that is where most people hit the problems. They twist the yarns too often as they're working along the row. So I'm going to be showing you today how to do this without twisting the yarns. Your yarns never get in a knot, and your knitting should lie nice and flat. Okay, so let's get rid of this. So I've got a blue here. See, there we go, and my contrast colour in off-white. Okay, my main colour, I always choose what I call a main colour, is the blue. And I've already worked here a base just to keep the bottom of my sample nice and flat. So I've just done a few rows of garter stitch, just knit every stitch. And now I'm going to be starting a Fair Isle pattern. Now I'm not asking you to follow a chart or anything like that yet, because you might not be ready for that yet. All I'm going to do is tell you as I'm going what the pattern is that I'm making. Okay, and the important thing is not how you hold your yarn. For instance, if I just do one stitch, are you an English knitter, which I am, where you hold your yarn in your right hand and feed it round that way? Are you a continental knitter, where you hold your yarn in your left hand and you do what's called picking the stitch up rather than throwing, which is what the UK way of doing it is called? So whichever you are, that's not really the important thing. What's important is how you pick up one yarn and drop it, and where you pick up your contrast yarn from and drop it. It's that determines the flatness across the back there. So what I'm going to ask you to do when you're practicing this is pick a main colour yarn and put that on the right hand side of your work. Your contrast colour yarn will go on your left hand side. Now I haven't introduced my contrast yarn yet. I'm going to be doing that right now. I happen to be using circular needles just because I like it. It doesn't matter. We're working backwards and forwards as normal rows. You can use standard needles, straight needles if you prefer. Okay, now the example I'm going to do today, I'm going to start actually with a contrast yarn. And this is how I join in. I just make a small loop and hook it over. So here's my first stitch, which is contrast colour. I'm going to do, all the way along this row, I'm going to do 3 in the main colour, 1 in the contrast colour. So I've done my contrast colour, that's over the back there. Now, if you do knit in the UK way, then I'm going to show you that first. I'm then going to show you the way that I do it, which is 1 yarn in each hand, which I find quite useful. We can tighten this one up later, don't worry about that at the minute. So first of all then, 3 in the main colour. 1, 2, 3. Now when you drop that yarn, you need to pick up the contrast colour from underneath the blue. You always pick it up the same way. So So now we're going to do one in the contrast. Now this is where the other place where people have issues is that they pull too tight here. What you need to do, how I do it anyway, it makes it easier I think, is start off your stitch, put your needle through that stitch, spread these out slightly, just slightly like that. Bring that round and make your stitch. Don't pull it any tighter. Don't think to yourself, oh, there's a big gap there, that's going to cause a hole, because it isn't. Because when you pick up the blue, it will close that slightly. So here's our one in contrast colour. Drop your contrast colour, pick the blue up over the top of the contrast colour. Okay, work 3 blue. Never be tempted to pull too tight. You'll get, obviously this takes practice and you'll get better at it as you go. Now my next stitch is the contrast, so I need to pick that up from under the blue. Again, I've spread these stitches out. Do that nice and loosely like that. Drop that, pick the blue up over the top. Now I'm going to show you how I do it, holding one yarn in each hand, because that means you don't actually have to drop the yarns at all. You can keep them tensioned, you can keep them on your fingers. So let me show you that. So 3 in the blue. Again, it's spread out, it's not tight, even though we're only going across the one stitch. 3 in the blue. Spread out. 1 in the cream. So the blues were on the top road, the bottom road is the cream. So if I'm doing it continental, I just wrap it round, wrap the needle underneath that yarn and pull it through. See, I haven't had to drop either yarns there. Let me show you that one more time. So we've done our contrast, we're now back to the blue, that's got to go over the top, which it does as we're holding it like this. Let me just tension that again. So 1, 2, 3. See, I haven't dropped the cream off, I don't need to. Now from underneath the blue, I pick up and work the cream stitch. Okay, and it's just picking at it like that. That will take practice, but it really does help, I think, to have them in each hand. 3 blues again over the top, and ending with 1 cream from underneath. And there we've done our first row, and if we just look at the back, you can see that the contrast ones are all underneath, and the floats, that is, and the blue floats are all lying at the top, and that's how it should be. Now when you turn to do the next row, you still should keep your yarns in the same position. So blue over here, contrast colour over there, but you need to do just one twist. This is the only time you need to twist your yarns around each other, is at the beginning of a row. So take your blue over the cream and bring it back, and you've now got one twist. All right, now I'm going to do a purl row now. Now I'm not so good holding in my left hand with the purl, but let's see. Now because we're purl, we're at the front, if you like, so I need the yarns at the front. Still on the left with the contrast, and on the right with the main. Now my pattern here is 2 contrasts to start with. So I'm actually going to hold it with my right hand for now. 2 contrasts to start with. Drop that. Pick the blue up over the top. It's always over the top. And this time it's 1 blue. Don't pull too tight. Spread your stitches out. And now we're into a pattern of 3 contrast and 1 main. All the way across. So 1. Picked it up from underneath. 2, 3. Pick this up from over the top. 1. Now I will try a bit with my left hand, but I'll probably give up after a while. 2, 3. Spread the stitches out, and 1 blue. See how much yarn is being used across there? That's absolutely fine. It doesn't want to be any tighter than that, because now when you do your contrast, spread out again a bit there, which is right. then it sort of takes up that slack. So 3 contrast and 1 main, 3 contrast from underneath, one main, and finishing with 2 contrast, 1 in the blue and 1 in this first stitch, which has gone very loose, but that's all right, we can just tighten it up. Tighten it out once more there. Okay, so we've completed our second row. Again, we've got floats on the back. The blues are a bit bigger floats this time, and they're above the cream, just like the blues were above the cream in the first row. Twist by grabbing my main, take it around my contrast and back over to the right hand side again. When I pick up this blue now, it's twisted round the cream, so it should work fine. Okay, now the first stitch on my third row is going to be 1 in main. So we've got 1 main and 3 contrast. Pick at those contrasts like that over your finger. The contrast has gone over there, the blue comes over the top, ready for 1 blue. And we've spread my stitches out nice and evenly there, 1 blue. Back to 3 contrasts again. To spread out your stitches, the best way to do it is to put your needle ready to work the next stitch first, and then you can spread them out nice and evenly like that. Get your yarn ready to work the next stitch. 3 cream. See, I'm not that practiced with my left hand holding the yarn, but I should probably do a bit more of that. Spread them out, your needle's in the stitch, ready to go, and do that 1 blue. 3 contrast, 1 blue, 3 contrast, and the last one is blue. So we're starting to get a sort of a pattern appearing now. It's fairly neat. Is it neat on the back? Yes, it is fairly neat. Don't forget, at the end, when you've finished your item, whatever it is you're making, you should block it anyway. It helps even out the stitches. I'll just do 1 more purl row then. So again, I'm going to take my blue, twist it around the cream and put the blue back on the right hand side. So on this last row, I've got to start with 2 of the main colour, 2 pearls in the main colour. Now we're back to 1 in the contrast. So pick it up from underneath the blue and work that 1 stitch. Now we're going to have 3 dark blues working above the cream yarn, 1 from underneath in cream, 3 from above in blue, and 1 from underneath in cream. See how I'm keeping all my stitches nicely spread out. Okay, so we're nearly there. 1 more in cream from underneath. And I did manage to use my left hand there. Maybe when I think about it, is when I get issues. So there we go. We've got a lovely sort of zigzag little pattern coming along there, quite nicely. The back's straight, and those yarns would be straighter once they're blocked. But I'm happy that they're not crossing over. That's the main thing. So there you go, that's what this video is all about, how to work Fair Isle, how to hold the yarns, how to pick up the yarns and the place where you should pick them up from. That's it for this video. In the next one, I'll be showing you how to trap your floats across the back if they're longer than these ones are. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you do, just give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel.